November 14th, 2025, 7:42 a.m., the Pentagon, Arlington, Virginia. Marcus Webb had been a federal contract auditor for 11 years. He had reviewed thousands of procurement invoices, defense contracts, maintenance schedules, logistics agreements, parts supply chains. Most were routine, most were forgettable. He had a system: open the file, cross-reference the line items, flag discrepancies, move on. He was good at it, fast, methodical. On November 14th, he opened invoice 2247B from AeroShield Defense Solutions. Line item 7 caught his attention: $4.2 million. Maintenance and operational support services for C-130 transport aircraft. Dallas Air Force Base, Abilene, Texas. Standard language, standard procurement format, standard everything. Webb cross-referenced the tail numbers. 3 of the 7 aircraft listed had been decommissioned 18 months earlier. They had been stripped, logged out of service, and removed from the active fleet inventory. They were not parked. They were gone. Someone had billed the United States Air Force $4.2 million to maintain planes that no longer existed as operational aircraft. Webb did not move on. He pulled 2 additional invoices from the same vendor: Invoice 2201A, Invoice 2219C, different billing periods, same ghost aircraft. The numbers were $1.1 million and $2.7 million respectively. He sat with those 3 documents for 14 minutes. Then he filled out the standard discrepancy form, submitted it to his supervisor by 9:15 a.m. His supervisor forwarded it to the Defense Contract Audit Agency field office in Dallas. The DCAA submitted it to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. What happened next took 16 months and pulled in the FBI, the Department of Defense Inspector General, and the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The final arrest count: 9 individuals. Total fraud against the United States government: $37 million. The sentences handed down in March 2026 ranged from 4 years to 22 years in federal prison. It began with one man spending 14 minutes on 3 invoices. Subscribe now. This level of investigation takes months to reconstruct. This channel brings it to you every week. AeroShield Defense Solutions had been a licensed Air Force contractor for 6 years before Marcus Webb opened that file. Founded in 2017 by David Kessler, a former Air Force logistics officer who had spent 12 years at Langley Air Force Base before entering the private sector. Kessler was not a criminal when he founded the company. He was a man who understood the procurement system from the inside, who knew how invoices moved, who approved them, and how long it took for anyone to look closely. The company's early contracts were legitimate: small maintenance agreements, calibration services, parts sourcing for aging aircraft components. Kessler built a reputation for reliability, fast turnaround, and competitive pricing. By 2021, AeroShield held 3 active Air Force contracts worth a combined $14 million annually. The company had 11 employees, a real office in Fort Worth, a real operation. That was when Kessler met Colonel James Harmon. Harmon was the Deputy Director of Air Force Contracting Procurement at Dallas Air Force Base. He controlled which vendors received contract renewals, which invoices moved through the approval chain quickly and which sat for months, which companies received preferred status in competitive bidding. He had held the position for 4 years. He had the trust of everyone above him and the quiet authority that comes from being the person who knows where every contract lives in the system. According to federal prosecutors, the arrangement between Kessler and Harmon began in the spring of 2022. The first payment, $47,000, transferred in 3 installments through a shell company registered in Delaware. The company had no employees, no operations. Its registered address was a mail forwarding service in Wilmington. Harmon approved 2 AeroShield invoice packages that same week. No audit review, no secondary authorization, standard processing. That was the first time. The first time, Kessler told himself it was a business expense, a relationship maintenance cost. The kind of thing that happened in any industry with large government contracts, he later told investigators. He told himself it was a one-time arrangement. It was not a one-time arrangement. By the end of 2022, Payments to Harmon had totaled $310,000. By mid-2023, $890,000. By the end of that year, the running total had crossed $1.4 million. The payments moved through a network of 4 shell entities, 3 registered in Harmon's wife's maiden name, 1 registered to a nominee director in Arizona, whose address was a UPS store in Scottsdale. The invoices kept moving. Ghost aircraft billed as active. Maintenance hours logged for technicians who were never deployed to Dias. Parts listed as installed on aircraft that did not exist in the operational fleet. A subcontractor relationship with a company called Meridian Technical Services that existed only on paper. Registered, licensed, and fully documented, but with no physical location, no workforce, and no capacity to perform any of the services it billed for. Meridian Technical Services billed AeroShield $4.7 million over 22 months. Every dollar of it was fraudulent. Every invoice passed through Harmon's approval chain without a single flag. 4 other AeroShield employees were involved in falsifying service records. 2 additional Air Force procurement officers received payments in exchange for approval signatures on invoices they did not examine. 2 accountants, 1 at an outside firm, 1 internal, structured the transfer payments in increments below $9,000 to avoid automatic federal financial reporting thresholds. 41 separate transactions, each one designed to be invisible. The forensic report on the scheme contained one detail that would not be disclosed until the sentencing hearing. We will come to that. What would you have done in Marcus Webb's position? An 11-year auditor, a flagged discrepancy that could be a clerical error, a supervisor who might say it is not worth the paperwork. Type A if you push it forward regardless. Type B if you let it go and move to the next file. FOSI Special Agent Rebecca Flores received a referral in late November 2025. Flores had spent 8 years investigating defense contractor fraud. She had worked adjacent to the Fat Leonard scandal in 2015. She had seen billing fraud, kickback schemes, and shell company networks in various forms across her career. She recognized the structure of the AeroShield invoices within 48 hours. Ghost aircraft billing was not uncommon, but the scale, $37 million across 3 years, was significant, and the internal approval pattern was the detail that elevated it. Someone with procurement authority at Dias was not just failing to catch the fraud. Someone was actively routing the invoices through the path of least resistance. That required knowledge and access. Flores requested Harmon's full financial disclosure records on December 1, 2025. What she received 9 days later was a 340-page file. Within 48 hours of reviewing it, she escalated to the FBI Financial Crimes Unit in San Antonio. The shell company network was more sophisticated than it appeared from the outside. 3 of the 4 entities had been incorporated in different states in different years, using different registered agents. 2 had nominee directors with no documented connection to Harmon. The Arizona UPS store address was used as a registered office for 6 other inactive companies with no apparent connection to the Harmon network. A deliberate obfuscation technique designed to make the Harmon-linked entity look like one of many unremarkable commercial mailbox registrations. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division joined the case in January 2026. Their forensic accountants traced $2.3 million in payments from AeroShield to Harmon's network between 2022 and 2025. The 41 sub-threshold transfers, the nominee directors, the inactive layering companies, 16 months of financial architecture designed to move money without leaving a direct path. Harmon was still at Dias, still approving contracts, still processing invoices. His badge was still active. His office was still his. The surveillance operation authorized on January 8, 2026, placed monitoring on Harmon's personal and work communications, his vehicle, and 2 properties associated with the Shell network. A cooperating informant, whose identity has never been publicly disclosed, was placed inside AeroShield's accounts department. They had access to the internal billing system and the informal communication channels between Kessler's team and the procurement contacts at Dias. The informant is currently in witness protection. On February 3, 2026, Kessler met Harmon at a steakhouse in downtown Abilene. The meeting lasted 1 hour and 14 minutes. Federal agents had the restaurant under audio and visual surveillance. Kessler referenced 3 upcoming contract renewals worth a combined $8.1 million. Harmon confirmed his approval position on all 3. The word commission was used 4 times. The phrase standard arrangement appeared twice. Neither man lowered his voice when he said it. 3 days later, Flores coordinated simultaneous search warrants across 5 locations. The AeroShield corporate offices in Fort Worth, Kessler's residence in Southlake, Harmon's home in Abilene, a storage facility in Midland associated with the Shell network, the offices of the outside accounting firm. At 6 a.m. on February 6, 2026, 18 federal agents executed the warrants simultaneously. At Kessler's home office, 3 external hard drives containing the full internal accounting records for AeroShield, including a separate ledger file, a spreadsheet maintained in a personally encrypted folder, tracking every commission payment by contract number, date, recipient, and amount. The ledger covered 3 years of transactions. It was meticulous. Every entry was cross-referenced to its corresponding AeroShield invoice. Kessler had built a record of his own criminal enterprise. He had maintained it for 3 years. He had it on a hard drive in his home office. At Harmon's residence, $214,000 in cash, stored across 3 locations within the house. 9 luxury watches, 6 Swiss, 3 Japanese, with a combined retail value of approximately $340,000. Documents referencing 2 offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Total balance in those accounts at the time of the search: $1.7 million accumulated across 31 separate deposits over 3 years. You have seen the evidence now. What would you have done if you were Kessler's accountant and you were asked to structure those transfers? Comment your position below. Kessler pleaded guilty on February 28, 2026. In his plea allocution, he described the arrangement with Harmon as having evolved gradually from what he characterized as a legitimate relationship-building expense. He said he knew it was wrong by the end of 2022. He continued for 3 more years. Judge Patricia Mendez sentenced Kessler on March 19, 2026. 22 years, 3 months. Forfeiture of all proceeds traceable to the fraud. No parole eligibility for the first 18 years. Harmon entered a not guilty plea and demanded a jury trial. His defense argued that the Shell company payments were legitimate consulting fees for services rendered, that Harmon had no knowledge of the fraudulent invoices, and that his approval of AeroShield contracts reflected his honest professional judgment. The jury heard the steakhouse recording. They heard the word commission 4 times. They heard standard arrangement twice. They deliberated for 3 days. On March 12, 2026, they returned guilty verdicts on all 17 counts: bribery, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and 6 counts of making false statements on federal financial disclosure forms. Sentenced March 19, 2026, 19 years, forfeiture of $1.7 million in offshore funds, the $215,000 in cash, the 9 watches, and his military pension, the pension he had accumulated over 26 years of Air Force service, forfeited in full. The 7 remaining defendants received sentences ranging from 4 years to 9 years. Now the detail from the forensic accounting that was not disclosed until the sentencing hearing. The forensic team determined that $4.2 million in fraud proceeds remained untraced, funds that moved through the Shell network and exited into accounts and instruments that the investigation was unable to identify. Not cryptocurrency, not offshore. The money left the documented network through a series of transactions that pointed toward a real estate holding structure. But the chain broke at a property management company in New Mexico, whose records were found to be incomplete, partially destroyed, and in a format inconsistent with any standard accounting practice. $4.2 million, untraced, listed in the DCAA active recovery file. No recovery date has been set. The New Mexico property management company is under a separate civil investigation that has not been publicly discussed. What is the one detail in this case that does not sit right with you? The ledger Kessler kept? The $4.2 million that disappeared into a property management company? The 9 watches? Drop it in the comments. Marcus Webb testified at the sentencing hearing as a government witness. He had been on administrative leave during the investigation, a procedural requirement when an auditor becomes a material witness in a federal case. He returned to work in January 2026. He drives to the Pentagon every morning. He reviews contracts. He cross-references line items. He flags discrepancies and files the standard forms. On the morning of November 14, 2025, he had 3 other invoices open on his desk. He finished them first. Then he came back to AeroShield. 4 minutes to cross-reference the tail numbers. 14 minutes to pull the additional invoices and confirm what he was seeing. 18 minutes total. From the moment he opened invoice 2247B to the moment he started filling out the discrepancy form. The men who built a $37 million fraud inside Air Force procurement did not fail because the system caught them. The system had been running those invoices for 3 years and 4 months without a single flag. 147 approved invoices, 41 of them fraudulent. They failed because one auditor spent 18 minutes doing his job. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. These investigations require months of document review, and this channel is not done with this case. The $4.2 million and the New Mexico property structure are still active. When that breaks, you will see it here first. The system that allowed $37 million to move through Air Force procurement is not a broken system. It is a system that worked exactly as designed, for the people who spent years redesigning it for their own use. That is the detail that does not resolve. Not the sentences, not the forfeiture orders, not Harmon's pension. The system is still running. Different vendors, different officers, different invoice numbers. And somewhere, another line item 7 is waiting for someone to spend 18 minutes on it. The $4.2 million is on someone's books right now, labeled something else, moving somewhere. That is where the investigation ends, and where the next one begins. There is one more thing worth understanding about how this fraud survived for 3 years and 4 months inside a system that was built to detect it. The Defense Contract Audit Agency processes approximately 47,000 contract invoices per year across its field offices. The Fort Worth field office, the office responsible for the AeroShield account, processed 3,200 invoices in 2024 alone. Auditors at that office carry an average of 180 active accounts. The standard review time allocated per invoice, according to DCAA internal guidelines, is 11 minutes. 11 minutes for one invoice, with 3,200 invoices and 180 accounts per auditor. AeroShield submitted 147 invoices over 3 years. 41 of them were fraudulent. The system reviewed them all. The system approved them all. Because the system was running at the throughput for which it was designed, with the staffing levels that existed, with the oversight architecture that was in place. Kessler knew this. He had spent 12 years inside the Air Force logistics structure. He understood what the system could see and what it could not. He designed his invoices to be normal, specific enough to look legitimate, general enough to avoid triggering technical red flags, processed through an approval officer who had been paid to approve them. He built a fraud that was precisely calibrated to the limits of the system watching it. And it worked for 3 years. What stopped it was not the system. What stopped it was one auditor at one desk in Arlington, Virginia, on a Thursday morning in November, who opened an invoice he had no particular reason to examine closely and spent 14 minutes doing it anyway. The ledger Kessler maintained, 3 years of detailed commission entries, is in federal evidence storage in San Antonio. The sentencing judge described it as the most self-incriminating document this court has encountered in a procurement fraud case in this jurisdiction. She said it while reading the sentence aloud. 22 years, 18 non-parole years. Harmon sat in uniform for every hearing. He wore it to the arraignment, to the pretrial motions, to the jury selection, to the verdict, to the sentencing. Judge Mendez noted the uniform twice during the sentencing proceeding. She noted what it represented. She noted that the man wearing it had spent 3 years approving fraudulent invoices while that uniform was hanging in a closet in Abilene. She sentenced him without pausing. The Air Force has not publicly addressed which procurement process reforms, if any, have been implemented at DIAS following the conviction. A spokesperson's statement issued in April 2026 referenced ongoing contract review enhancements without specifics. The DCAA has not publicly discussed its staffing allocation or review time guidelines in the context of this case. The New Mexico Property Management Company is still operating. The civil investigation is ongoing with no public timeline for resolution. Marcus Webb received a formal commendation from the Department of Defense Inspector General in February 2026. The commendation cited his diligent identification of procurement irregularities, leading to a significant federal fraud prosecution. It was presented in a private ceremony. He requested that it not be publicly announced. He drove to work the next morning. Standard commute, 11 years of invoices. He is still there, still reviewing, still spending the time. $4.2 million is still moving through an unidentified structure. The investigation is listed as active. No closure date projected. That number is not going to disappear from the record. It exists in the sentencing documents, in the DCAA recovery file, in the federal civil case reference. It will be in every future procurement fraud training module that uses this case as an example. $37 million total, $32.8 million accounted for. $4.2 million somewhere in a property management structure in New Mexico. The ledger is in evidence. Harmon's pension is forfeited. The UPS store in Scottsdale still operates. And the 41 approved invoices are in the archive. Every one of them cleared. Every one of them paid. Someone signed off on all 41. The investigation named 2 additional procurement officers who received payments. Their cases resolved with plea agreements and sentences of 4 and 6 years respectively. That leaves the other approval signatures, the ones that moved through standard processing, the ones that did not require a paid officer, just a system running at 11 minutes per invoice, 180 accounts per auditor, 3,200 invoices per year. Those signatures are in the archive too. Nobody has looked at them yet.